Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. You have a good Christmas?
I did, yeah. Spent some nice time with the family. How about you?
Yeah, good, thanks. We're out in the Western Cape in a hotel, so we're having a nice little family vacation. And well, I'm working; they're all on holiday. But yeah, all good.
Yeah, it looks nice there.
Yeah, it's a nice place. The weather's been a bit iffy, but that seems to be normal nowadays with global warming. But yeah, it's a good vibe.
Nice.
It's nice and warm. That's the key.
Yeah. No, that's nice.
I haven't read that article you sent me. Sorry, I haven't even got to that stuff yet.
No worries.
But just the headline I thought was great, because that's exactly what I was talking to someone about the other day. They were talking about the psychological effects of working from home and how you get into some really bad habits. And you know, like I'm one of them. Like I'll go to gym in the morning, then I'll go for a walk, then I'll do some email or something like that, and then before I know it, my first calls are coming up, and I haven't even showered yet. So then I'll spend the whole, because I'm not seeing anyone really. I'm on camera. I'll shower at like 3:00 in the afternoon. You know, because you've got to shower at some point. But that's my first gap. And then there's other things about being too much with your family too much, because you're all at home, and that also starts creating issues, because you actually need a gap from them as well, and then they need a gap from you. There's all these sorts of things, and I was thinking about it from the point of when you said the article. I was thinking about the friendships, and you forget about that as well. Because some of that is bonding with people at work, and not just to collaborate and trust each other, but it's the friendships and building bonds for life in some sense.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the difficulty of building bonds in a remote sense, it made me think of how, a lot of people, when you make friends when you're younger, it's in school, it's in shared activities, maybe it's family friends. And then a lot of adults, where do you spend most of your time that you would be meeting people to become friends with, which would be the workplace. And a lot of those friends might not be, people you are in the same department with or work with every day. So when you lose those kind of hallway moments, it's not as easy to form bonds. And I think that the office friendship I don't think it's impossible to become friends with someone in a remote sense, but I think it takes longer.
Yeah, definitely. And then, I think we were just talking about it now in this previous call. There's a need to meet up to go and see a customer. You will have that bonding moment because you're flying into one location, you'll go out for dinner, it'll be the first time you're meeting physically, so it'll be almost like an adventure. Then you'll have this stressful engagement with the customer, because it's always, stressful. But that'll create the foundations for friendship to happen, because you get to know each other, you're spending time in a hotel, you're outside of your comfort zones. So that'll help you bond really quickly. Where in an office, you may never speak to that person beyond meetings, so you don't build a friend's relationship, because it's transient in some respect.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but I think you're right. The kind of quickest ways I've ever bonded with people have been going to conferences together, because you have the air travel, the meals out, the stressful conference experience, depending on what you're there to do, and then you might go out afterwards. There's just a lot more socialization. You really get to see different sides of people that you might not in a kind of office environment where there's just it's just more formal or there's less chances to interact.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're still social beasts, so we need to have those things. What I am finding interesting, so we've obviously been traveling quite a lot, and I'm running into people when we're traveling and finding that people are a lot more sociable now than they were in some respects because they've craved it for so long. And I've chatted to a few guys that are also here on holiday, but they're also working. So we've almost created our own little working club. So we meet at like 6 a.m. We do like 2 hours together, 3 hours together. Then they go off their way and I go my way. And then there's a spa here. So in the spa at night, we all catch up and we're like, so how was the work there? I know this is going on, this is going on. So I'm actually, it's interesting because I'm actually learning out of a lot from people here. Because I've got, a couple lawyers and a couple guys that build cars and race cars and whatnot. I'm learning about how they do their business now. You never think a guy building cars would be doing it remotely, but he said, I've designed the car, I'm just waiting for them to build it. So I'm just checking in, I'm answering the questions while they build it, and I can do it while I'm here. And they're walking out with cameras and sending me videos, and I can do it. So that's never thought I'd get to that point, but it makes total sense.
Yeah, no, that is very cool. That situation sounds very digital nomad to me.
Yes, it is.
I did want to ask too, because you had sent that interesting article about kind of how you check off from work a couple weeks ago. It was kind of like tips for ending your day. Do you try to do any sort of routine, or what's your kind of practice for that?
I do. I have a sort of trigger that when it's the end of the day, I always read a book. I read a chapter out of the book, so that's how I end the day. And I have before I'm allowed to read the book, I've got a template that I write out all the things that I need to do tomorrow. Sort of all the open strings that need to be tied off. And while I'm reading the book, I kind of fill that in as I go. So just so I don't forget anything, or I let the things that I'm worried about come out on a piece of paper. And that's pretty quick. It takes me about 5 minutes to do. But that's just the trigger that flicks the switch between end of the day and going. It's a bit trickier now working more US hours. Because that I used to do at about 4 or 5 o'clock local time. Now I'm doing that sort of 8, 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock at night. But it's amazing how the brain is just trained to know when you do that process, then you stop worrying about work stuff and you go into sort of chill out mode. But I do take time with the family during that sort of 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock period, the bath time, dinner time, all that stuff. So that can be a frustrating time because that's usually the meaty time with stuff that's going on as the US guys come online and they want to chat, do stuff, etc. And I'm like, well, I can't talk now. It's bedtime, bath time, etc. But that'll sort itself out, as people get to know what's going on and where I am and all that sort of thing. Yeah, that's about it. And yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm curious about this template that you use to log your stuff when you wind down. But I have not like a thing I do every day, but just sort of some similar habits. So I usually take end of day Friday to do a big brain dump of all of the things that I want to remind myself about for the following week. But most days, I wouldn't say I have great habits around it. I usually end work between 5:30 and 7. I mean, it really depends. I feel like my work habits are a lot better now. Joining a new team, I've kind of taken the time to, I've been really intentional about trying to preserve more of that work-life balance than I had been doing in the past. So I usually check off work and then scroll social media on the couch for 15 to 30 minutes and then make dinner. And then that's like just the evening, make dinner, watch shows, do dishes, take care of the cats. It's not a super productive evening routine, but it's pretty standard.
Yeah, I mean, the template's very simple. just to answer your question, I mean, it is really just a case of, is there a meeting I have to set up? Is there calls I need to do? Is there brain work that I need to do? So like I'm working on a design document at the moment, so that's always on my list of things that I need to do tomorrow that I meant to do that I didn't get to, like I'm going to read something or research something or whatever it is. And that just helps me when I wake up in the morning to go, I just go look at the list and then I plan sort of freshness, the fresh time to look at the most brain intensive things first. Because the worst thing you can do is go look at your email first thing. Because that just scatters you all over the place. And then by about 10 o'clock, usually, that's when I start looking at email. But the template's very basic. It's meant to be basic. It's got to be so simple that you just can't not do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's too complicated, then you don't do it. Which is what I did do that first. I had a very complicated, messy thing, and it's just never went anywhere.
Yeah, it's like too much work to actually fill it out.
Yeah, exactly that.
Off of that article, was there anything that they had pointed out as a transitional routine that you thought was interesting or would want to try out yourself?
There were a couple of things that I liked about it. I mean, some of the stuff is pretty, I mean, the nice thing about most of the things is pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But I like things like context. So where you do certain tasks, you don't, if you can help it, you don't eat where you work. You know, that sort of thing. So even in the hotel where we're staying now, I've got a desk set up there that is away from the lounge and it's away from the bedroom, and I work there, and that's the only thing that I do there. So if I sit down there, I'm going to work. If it's really early in the morning and the kids are sleeping and stuff, I'll leave the room and I'll go sit in the internet cafe and work there. So there's always a break, a physical break between the areas. I think the other general things is just booking things out in your calendar. So if you need time, like I say, I need to do bed and bath time. That's booked in my calendar. So guys don't book meetings there. Pick the kids up from school, that sort of thing. So those are all good habits to have. I can't think of anything else off that article that really jumped out as, yeah, it was really those things. Did you have anything you liked out of it?
Yeah, I think those are all good practices. I agree that I think there's nothing here that was particularly unexpected. I think maybe ones that I wouldn't necessarily have thought about is starting a craft after work. So kind of working with your hands in some way, whether that's painting or embroidery, or I think you could even go out to the shed and work with some tools and do some woodworking or something like that. I think even a puzzle, I think there's something appealing to me about doing things with your hands, engaging kind of other parts of your brain after as a kind of transitional activity.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. I just don't have the time or the space, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I need to tie up.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll catch up next week.
All right. Happy New Year.
All right. You too. Have a good one. Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.